Hi all, welcome to my new little vlog here. Right before us is a beautiful pair of tartan wool trousers that's part of my little ensemble for my fashion show. It's a three-piece suit I'm making. I'm hoping to make 20. I'm a bit behind my work, but I will make it up if I put about 15 hours a day plus. So anyway, so I've had a fitting with the model. Everything is perfect now. So now I'm going to disassemble it. So I'm going to rip it all apart and stitch it back up to how it should be. So I'm going to put all my permanent stitches in and I'm not going to put pockets in this one. So I'm going to disassemble it and then actually make it up. So I can never emphasize, always make up your mock-up. So this is, even though it's in the real fabric, this is kind of a mock-up, but you know, in the actual fabric, I've actually put big stitches in a very weak thread, and so it's easy to rip it all apart. And that's what I've done. So I might show you here. They're all big stitches here, and it's in weak thread anyway. So there we have that. So I'm going to take this all apart now, and I'm going to put it back together. So that's what I'm going to do here now. I'm going to just show you little bits. So as I was saying, there is never such thing as a perfect pattern. It does not exist. Even though I'm a professional, even though I've made the pattern as well for the model, I still had to tweak the pattern a little bit here and there, not too much, but I still had to tweak it. So there's no such thing as a perfect pattern. It's the fittings of this now that will create the perfect pattern. So I'm going to use this now as my template to adjust my pattern, and that's what everyone should do. So please bear that in mind. So I'm just going to take this apart now. I'm not going to bore you too much, so I'm just going to take this all apart. You can see I put very big stitches in this, and I've tacked it all together, what we call basted it all together. And this is the process we do in the bespoke world. We have fittings, and then we take it and recut it if we need to, and then we'll make it up then. So some tailors will put a dummy waistband. I don't put a dummy waistband. I actually put the waistband is going to be made up in the permanent way. So I can just see how it's going to be. So this will be the actual fabric I'm using as well for the waistband. So we have to take it all apart now and assemble it back up. So this is the process we have to do. And you should never skip on doing mock-ups. As I said, there's no such thing as a perfect pattern, and it's the fittings that will create that perfect pattern for you. So always remember that, please. So you can see I put a real big stitch there in this white thread. I think it's a weak 120s thread, and it's just easier to undo then. Just to see, I can rip it apart quite easily. You've got to be careful because this is real thick fabric. If you've got very fine fabric, don't do this way. You can just undo the stitches this way. Just use your finger. So I've got long fingernails, and I had an accident on this finger. I burnt it, and it's sore. So I've got to be careful with that little finger there, and just undo the stitches and just pull it. You can do it that way. Don't use a seam ripper, please. Or you can use. There are people that use seam rippers. They're a terrible invention. You can use also as well this way as well, which I do. If you get a razor blade, these are my razor blades here, you can see, and you can do it this way. Just be careful when you're using razor blades, please. See? So you can do it this way as well. So yeah, there's various ways, but the seam ripper is terrible. It can actually rip into the fabric, so just be careful with the seam ripper. Once you get used to these razor blades, they're pretty good. I think in England, in Poundland, they sell about 10 of them for £1. They're pretty good. Or you can go on Amazon, and I bought, I think, 100 of them for £7, £8, £10 or whatever. So that's pretty good value. And you can see my zip, I've basted it in. So that will come off very easily now. So just undo that. So you can see now I'm disassembling it now, and then I'm going to press it all out and stitch it all back because it's perfect on the model now. I don't need to do anything, any adjustments. I'd already done adjustments after the first fitting on her, so this was the second fitting on her. Just wanted to just double check. Usually first fitting of the trousers is fine, and then you make it up, but because I had to have a second fit with the jacket, I didn't make these trousers up there. I made a slight mistake on cutting the pattern for her, so I had to have a second fitting with her. So there we have that. So I'm going to get back to you when it's all disassembled. Right everyone, so now we have, let me just get my camera in view for you. So I've undid that. This side seam was permanently stitched because I knew it was, because remember I'd already had a first fitting, so I knew it was pretty good. So I had to make a few adjustments. This all been ripped apart now. And now I've got to reposition my dart a little bit more in. And you can see, I just wanted to explain something here. You see these little white stitches here, these are what we call inlays. So when you make mock-ups as well, because we don't make up mock-ups for trousers, we actually cut it in the real fabric. We leave what we call inlays. See, this is all extra fabric, and I leave it when I've got a first customer, a brand new customer. I always leave inlays on the waist. Some tailors don't, but I do, as foolproof, so I know if I've got to lengthen the length of the crotch, then I've got enough. So I left inlay here, this is a 1 inch inlay, and I had to extend it right to the top. So I had to use all this inlay because I'd made a slight mistake when I was measuring her, that the crotch length was too tight on her and it was pulling underneath the crotch. And I left, also on the inside here, I left an inlay here. I left nearly 1 inch, and I had to let this inlay out as well. So always, even when you're making mock-ups, always leave inlays. I think there's a video I do explain about inlays, and I will do another video about where to put your inlays on your trousers. I do this for all my designs, all my dresses, everything, shirts, everything, when I do first fitting or something. And this is foolproof, the foolproof method for when we're actually cutting out in the real fabric, because this is the real fabric. So we leave inlays on the top of the waist all the way down. On here, we leave inlays on the back seam, about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4, and we leave inlays. Sometimes we'll leave inlays down to the knee on the inside back leg. I leave the inlay all the way down the hem, and I'm glad I did that. See, this is the inlay now. You can actually see where this is creased over. This is the inlay, inch inlay, because I'm going to widen this because it was a bit too fitted on her. So I'm going to use all of my inlays. So, and of course you leave all your inlays on your hem as well. So when I'm cutting it out as well, I did leave an inlay on the side seam here, but I've trimmed it all off. Trimmed all off because it was fine. So that's foolproof method. Always put inlays, even when you're making mock-ups as well. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put the other side on top of this. I'm going to retrim this top now because you've got all this frayed edges. I'm going to just retrim it so it'll all be accurate again. And I'll take out these inlay markings because I'm not using that anymore. I'm going right to the top of the waist here. So there we have that, everyone. So I will see you very soon on my next vlog. And as you can see here, you can see the checks are matching as you go down on the side seam. It's really important. You've got to match up the checks as well as it goes down the leg. You can see here, you've got to match it up exactly. So then that's how so bear that in mind when you're actually cutting the fabric out, especially when you're working with plaids, checks and stripes. Right everyone, I will see you very soon as I complete these trousers. Ciao.